Thank you so much for joining us today. I have the distinct pleasure and honor to be here with Dan LeGallo, who is the superintendent of one of my very favorite school districts, Franklin School District in Franklin, New Hampshire. I absolutely love being in this district. It is one of my favorite places to be. If I could go there every day, I honestly would. So they are a very unique school district that has made so many changes. They have wellness programs. They have involved the community. They have one of the longest standing parades where the students actually walk through the city and all the townspeople come to watch. It is an amazing feat, and there's lots that goes on within this district and a lot of challenges that they contend with that they are able to manage to see kids thrive, which is just amazing. So I am super excited to have Dan LeGallo here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm happy to be here with you today, Dr. B. My pleasure. Looking forward to our conversation.
It will be fun. So things have changed a lot in the last 4 or 5 years.
They certainly have.
How do you see that the culture of schools have changed in the last few years?
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone could ever underestimate the impact of the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think of school pre-pandemic and what school was like. And then I think about that 18 months of pandemic craziness that has significantly impacted schools and significantly impacted our whole world. The isolation and some of the, what's going to come next mentality between kids and students has really had a significant impact on schools and school culture. We've had an explosion of social media thrust upon our kids, an explosion of technology use, one-to-one device, telephones, cell phones, and the impact has really been really interesting to watch on kids and on adults. Some of it positive, a lot of it unfortunately not so positive. Creating some situations and issues that we're all grappling with right now.
Yeah,
for sure. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you about some of these things today.
and I think that the big side of that is that it has left people feeling much more unsafe than they've probably ever felt. And we've seen that in so many ways. There's so many people that have left the education field. There's so many people that have decided, my kids are staying home until school starts. I'm fearful of this, I'm fearful of that. And unfortunately, we're seeing students that also have that intense fear. And that has made a huge impact. I got to tell you, every professional development training I do, the biggest thing that comes up is people's fear of school shootings and fear in general of coming in. And I'll say, I feel the safest going into a school. I feel the least safe probably going into community places or into an airport or something like that. But schools, there's a protocol for everything. So it creates a more safe environment. But for many, they don't feel that way. How do you work with staff, because it impacts them significantly, and if they don't feel safe, their students aren't going to feel safe. So how do you create these communities of safety for them?
Well, it's really about trying to manage the anxiety that so many people have around schools and school shootings and school safety in general. So when you talk about staff, the first and foremost, is the physical safety, and we've taken significant steps, as well as the whole state of New Hampshire, in making sure our physical environment is as safe as it can be. I mean, schools all have lockdown doors, double entrances, security systems, video cameras, you name it, we've implemented it in the last 5 years in terms of making the physical environment more safe for kids and for staff. And then it's about emotional safety. We just have so much going on, in our political world right now that impacts teachers tremendously. They're constantly worried about what they're teaching and how they're teaching it and whether they're going to get in trouble for teaching certain topics. And, trying to provide that emotional safety for teachers that, we support you, we trust you, we have your back. We're going to provide training to you. We're going to keep you updated on, what we need to keep you updated on, and really making sure that the teachers know that we have their backs. That's so important right now for teachers to know. because it is a very uncertain world. There's a political climate looking to really deconstruct public education as we know it, and teachers bear the brunt of that. And it's difficult. I mean, teaching is a difficult job when everybody's supporting you. It's almost impossible job when you have people working against you. So we do everything in our power to make sure people feel supported and appreciated. And we try to make sure we foster that throughout our entire district, and we try to foster that with our families as well. So,
and I will say, it's not just lip service. Every building that I'm in, I run into Mr. LeGallo. When I'm walking into those buildings, he's there, he's visible, he's talking to students, he's talking to staff, he's going to classrooms, he's checking in. That visibility is huge for people. They need to feel supported and connected and followed up with in order to feel safe. And that's a huge piece of it. And I think that families, it's the same with families. When you have that parent that sends that really negative email, behind it is, I'm scared and I don't know how to respond to this, and I don't have the skills to respond to this. So helping teachers navigate how to work with that, because it's not necessarily that the person's feeling negative towards them, even though they take it that way. It's really a matter of they don't have the skills to know how to communicate in a positive way, and they need to be led through that process.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Dr. B, because it really is a negative email from a parent is really a cry for help.
Yeah.
And that's how I interpret these and how I try to work with families, and the key is to be a good listener. I mean, a lot of times people don't listen, and they try to talk before they actually fully understand, what someone's trying to say. And I've learned in my time, the best thing I can do is really fully listen to parents and try to understand where they're coming from before I help them try to solve a problem. And a lot of times by doing that, they actually can solve most of the problem on their own, and are just grateful for me to be that lending ear and perhaps provide a little bit of guidance about what can be done.
Yeah.
Because it's struggle. I mean, my kids are older now. They're 17 and 18 and 20. So, but I can imagine how difficult it is right now to be raising kids in the climate that we're in, with the technology that we have right now. I mean, I feel like it was a lot easier for me to raise my own kids, and it's a difficult time right now.
There's definitely another layer of challenge with that. I mean, I have adult sons, and I have young daughters, and I'll say, people will say to my 11-year-old, when are you going to get a cell phone? And she says, Mom won't let me until I'm 32.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about cell phones all day, because cell phones, although they serve a good purpose, they really have been difficult to manage in schools, for sure.
Very difficult to manage in schools.
And there's some school districts that are talking about banning cell phones, and the state's talking about banning cell phones. And I'm not a fan of banning anything. I think our obligation is to teach kids how to use things responsibly, and when it's appropriate to use things. But yeah, they have certainly created some challenges. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest challenges is that parents want direct connection with their kids now because of safety.
Yeah.
So when you talk about taking cell phones away from kids, you get as many parent complaints about that as you do from the children.
Absolutely.
It's definitely a hot topic and a difficult issue to deal with. Luckily, we've navigated it fairly well here in Franklin. We've found some common ground at the different age levels, and we've stayed out of some of the more prominent wars between cities and schools and towns and schools on this issue. So we're going to keep going the direction we're going, which is responsible use and respectful use in classrooms, and keep promoting that approach.
Yeah, because it does lend itself to making people feel even more unsafe at times. I mean, people think it's an added layer of safety, and it's actually not. It actually undermines that safety level, and then adds to more dysregulation, which, that is a common issue that we're seeing with a lot of staff, is that they they don't feel regulated. They're coming in, they're saying, I'm tired, I don't feel well, I'm not sleeping, I'm having all these other issues. And that's a huge concern, because when that happens, we end up seeing a lot of increased absenteeism, and then we see a lot of staff that are leaving, and we do not want people to leave the field.
Right. Right.
And so how are you guys implementing more regulation strategies? I love to talk to your head of wellness, Barb. It's always a pleasure when I can spend some time with her, because she is always thinking about what else can we do for students? What else can we do for staff? How can we make people feel more regulated and just more well?
Yeah. So we're very fortunate to have Barbara Slayton, our Office of School Wellness Coordinator. And she just comes up with so many great things to do with kids and so many great things to do with our staff, to just, like you said, keep people regulated, make sure people know they're appreciated, deal with crisis situations when we need to with empathy, and compassion. I think empathy and compassion, is not enough of it these days. I try to model that as much as I can when I go around to the schools with kids and with adults. It's like a little bit more of that could go a long way for sure. But, back to Barbara, I mean, she comes up with some of the greatest things to do for kids, to just make them feel better about certain situations. She's wonderful with staff when they reach their boiling point with certain issues. Her counseling background serves her so well in this role. And, it's hard to believe we used to function without her, to be honest with you. I mean, I think back to, like, how did we function without having this whole department in our school system? How did we do it? And her and her team, they just do a wonderful job of taking care of each other, but also taking care of the staff members that need to be taken care of, and most certainly the students as well.
It makes a huge difference. I mean, your district is so fortunate where you have a social worker at each building, which is just amazing. You don't see that in a lot of districts, and it makes such a difference in the wellness of the students and the staff and everything else. And you can see the difference in just the programs that are going on and everything. You guys have really taken the community and wrapped around and created a lot of other additional wraparound services that are oftentimes outside of a school district's capacity of what they're doing. But you guys take it on and you say, oh, it's a community need, we're going to make sure it happens, which is such a great thing to see, because this is a community that needs those sorts of supports.
Yes, and that's what we identified. We made conscious decisions to fund those positions and said these have to be our priority if we're going to make an impact here. And it's to this point, it's worked out very well. It's paid itself forward for sure.
Yeah, because it's taking students and making them able to function in the community and be productive community members versus the other way around, which really makes all the difference in the world as far as being able to live productive and successful lives for people and that sort of thing. So Dan, I have a neat trick on empathy. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but you may need to take up a new pastime. So synchronized movement actually creates empathy in the brain. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but I'll have to try it for sure.
So dance moves or things like that will create empathy in the brain. So students are oftentimes like, oh gosh, you're going to make me do this, Dr. B. And I'm like, yeah, don't worry, you'll be fine. We got to go to class soon. I don't want to go to class. Well, we'll do this first and then see how you feel.
Right. So, now next time you see me, we're going to have to do that together, right? We'll do a little demonstration.
I'm on it. For sure. So in addition to that, sometimes it's tough to teach those higher skills because students and staff are coming in and they're not feeling safer. They are feeling dysregulated. And sometimes people are feeling like, well, I just got to sit down and my job is to teach and I have to teach. And that sometimes like we have to take those few steps beforehand in order to get them to that point where we can teach so that they feel so that the knowledge is actually being received, so the brain can actually transfer the knowledge. How do you impress that upon staff when they're feeling like, but I just need to teach? And usually they're the ones that need those techniques, and it benefits them just as much as it benefits the students.
Yeah, well, you try to have the conversations around, no significant learning happens without a significant relationship, so it really pays off. I mean, I used to have a conversation with a school board member in another district, and I would say, you start teaching your algebra on day one, I'll build relationships with kids for the first 2 weeks, and then let's see where you're at the end of the year and where
Yeah.
I'm at. And I will
Does.
tell you, at the end of the year, I'll be ahead 100% of the time,
Yes.
because it pays off. So, I tell those stories to teachers and say, this front loaded work you do in terms of setting environment, in terms of reducing anxiety, in terms of building relationships with kids, it will pay off tenfold throughout the year. So it's just getting teachers to understand, what's behind that and why that methodology works. And then once they experience that success themselves, then you got them and they get it, and they're off and running and they're good. But that's what we know. That's what we know. We know that about the brain and how, when anxiety is reduced and that amygdala can relax a little bit, right? And all of a sudden now they're open for learning and they want to learn because you've built a little relationship with them. So,
Yeah,
we have those conversations all the time with people.
Absolutely.
I used to say to my kids in my classes, when we play, we play. When we learn. And when we have fun, we have fun. And said we know when it's time to do each of those things. And when you can get kids to understand that environment, you've got them. They're in the palm of your hand at that point. So
yeah. And when you have all those components, usually that's when the best learning happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, my one of my parents taught in Franklin for more than 20 years. He's been teaching for 40 years at this point. And I said to him earlier this year, I said, "When are you going to retire?" And he looked at me and he said, "Beth, they treat me like gold. Those students treat me like gold. Why would I ever want to leave that? This is the best place I can be." And I was like, absolutely. What you couldn't, that is the best way to say it. And if everybody has that opinion about what they're doing, then man, we're going to change the world. Like the students they are fortunate, and we are fortunate to have them 100%.
Absolutely.
Dan, is there anything else you'd like to share with our community?
I just want to encourage people. I was talking to a reporter the other day about staff members coming from other fields to become teachers. And I left them with the fact that if you really want to make an impact, become a teacher. You can change somebody's life as a teacher. I mean, what greater impact could you ever want to make than to be able to change somebody's life? And, I truly believe that. I mean,
truly, there's almost no other field where people come back to you 20, 30, 40 years later and say, because of you, I decided to do this. Because of you, I'm now this person. And teaching, that's what it is.
You can do it. So, I mean, the benefits are unbelievable down the road, and just trying to encourage people to understand that it's not about money. It's not about status. It's about someone coming up to you, like you said, down the road and saying, "You changed my life." What could be any better than that?
Yeah, it's the most amazing thing. I got to say, I taught for a couple of years before I moved into this field, and I still hear from my students that I had in my first couple of classes when I was a teacher, which is just, I think, remarkable that that we still have that connection and everything.
Yeah. That's what I want for all teachers. I want them all to feel that way. I want them to have that experience. I think that's what all teachers deserve to hear.
Yeah, that's really what it's about. That's why we're doing it. So, Dan, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you being here today. This was great. And community, reach out. They are a wonderful school district, and I hope that you can visit them sometime.